She looked me straight in the eye and said, "If you can't handle my friend's sense of humor, then maybe you should just pay for your meal and head out." I smiled and told her, "Thanks for the option." Then I pushed my chair back, grabbed my car keys, and walked right out of the restaurant. At first, Emily thought I was just bluffing, playing along with the banter. But when her friends realized I'd only paid for my own dinner and was already out the door, the laughter around the table faded. So there I was, 27 years old, sitting in my car, trying to process the fact that I'd just walked out of what was supposed to be my girlfriend's big celebration dinner. Emily, 25, my girlfriend of 2 years, had practically handed me an escape route, and for the first time, I decided to take it. A little background. Emily and I first met at a friend's housewarming party. She struck me right away, smart, ambitious, quick-witted. She worked as a marketing coordinator back then, and we just clicked. About a year later, we moved in together. And for the most part, life was good. But there was one ongoing problem: her circle of friends. Her closest crew was a trio she'd known since college: Claire, 27, Zoe, 26, and Olivia, 25. To put it bluntly, they were a lot to deal with. Loud, sharp, always a little too much, and over time they only seemed to get bolder. Their jokes about me became a running theme. It started with little digs about my work. I'm a mechanic by trade, and in my free time I restore old cars. They'd make fun of that too: my clothes, my hobbies, whatever they could pick at. At first, I brushed it off. Emily would laugh along with them in the moment, but later assure me in private that she didn't mean any of it. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was her night. Emily had just been promoted to senior marketing coordinator, and I was honestly proud of her. I wanted to make it special, so I suggested we celebrate at a nice steakhouse downtown, my treat for the entire table. And for a while, it was going smoothly. Drinks, appetizers, casual conversation. It actually felt nice. Then, right on cue, Claire fired the first shot. "So Ryan," she smirked, "still playing with spare parts for a living? Must be nice having such an easy job. Doesn't take much brainpower, right?" I gave her a polite smile and said, "Actually, this work involves quite a bit of problem solving." That's when Zoe jumped in. "Oh, come on. It's not like you even need a degree for that. Meanwhile, Em's out here killing it in corporate." She tilted her head at me. "What's that thing you do again with the cars?" I answered calmly, "I restore vintage cars. Just finished one more, actually." Olivia snorted. "How much money do you waste on those rust buckets?" She laughed and nudged Emily. "Girl, you could do so much better. Remember Nathan from the conference? Now he had ambition." I turned to Emily, hoping she'd say something, anything. Instead, she just gave a little smile, shook her head, like it was all just harmless fun. No defense, not even a half-hearted one. The rest of dinner went the same way. They kept tossing digs about my grease monkey hobbies, how I'd never understand Emily's complex marketing strategies, and Claire even flat out said I was lucky Emily was willing to date down. The breaking point came when Zoe leaned back and said, "Honestly, Em, when are you going to upgrade? Ryan's sweet, but come on. You're executive material, and he's just—" She let the sentence hang. That's when I carefully set my fork down. Emily sighed and muttered, "Ryan, they're just joking around." I looked her in the eye and told her, "It doesn't feel like joking." Olivia burst out laughing. "Oh my God, he's so sensitive. What's wrong? Ryan, you gonna cry because we hurt your feelings?" I kept my composure and said evenly, "I'm not comfortable with this." And then it happened. Emily looked me straight in the eye, no hesitation, and said the words that made everything crystal clear. "If you don't like my friend's rude jokes, you can just pay for your food and leave." The whole table froze for a beat. The silence lasted just long enough for Claire to break into a giggle. "She really said it," she snorted. I nodded once and replied, "Thanks for the option." I stood, pulled out my wallet, and quickly counted out the cost of my meal with a tip. I set the cash down neatly in front of me. "This covers mine," I told them. Emily rolled her eyes like I was throwing a tantrum. "Ryan, sit down. Don't be dramatic." I picked up my keys instead. "Enjoy your celebration dinner," I said, and started walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Olivia laugh, and Zoe's voice followed me out. "He'll be back in 5 minutes. Watch." They were wrong. I didn't go back. I made it to my car and sat there for a few minutes, heart pounding but strangely calm. 15 later, my phone lit up with messages from Emily. Very funny. Come back and pay the bill. Then, Ryan, this isn't cute anymore. Then, are you serious right now? I didn't reply. Instead, I started the car and drove home. More messages rolled in as I was on the road. By the sound of it, reality set in when the server dropped off the check. Almost $500 for the table. They'd ordered the best steaks on the menu, rounds of cocktails, desserts stacked high. My $100 covered exactly what I'd eaten and tipped the server fairly. That was it. Emily called 15 times during my drive back to the apartment. I let every one of them ring out. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, she'd left 5 voicemails, each angrier than the last, moving from annoyed to furious to downright insulting. I walked inside, grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed it with clothes and toiletries, and decided I was done for the night. I drove over to my buddy Luke's place. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like, but I knew one thing. I was finished being the punchline. I barely slept. Between the adrenaline, the noise of my phone buzzing nonstop, and the sheer weight of what had happened, I just couldn't. Emily sent message after message. I can't believe you humiliated me like that. My friends think you're pathetic. You left me with a $500 bill. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Venmo me right now. Answer your damn phone. Around 3 in the morning, her friends piled on. Claire sent me a long paragraph about how I was financially abusive for tricking them into thinking I'd cover the whole table. Zoe texted that I was a petty loser. Olivia sent me a Venmo request for $100 labeled for emotional damages. I blocked all 4 of them. This morning, just as I was finally starting to drift off on Luke's couch, a knock shook the door. Luke peeked through the blinds, then looked back at me with raised eyebrows. It's her, Emily. Luke, being the solid guy he is, cracked the door open and told her I wasn't there. She immediately pointed to my truck in the driveway. I know he's here. His truck is outside. Luke didn't flinch. Maybe he parked here and Ubered somewhere. She stood out there for 15 minutes, switching between pounding on the door and calling my block number. Finally, she stormed off, but not before yelling. This is so childish, Ryan. You can't just run away from your responsibilities. Responsibilities? My only responsibility that night was to pay for my meal, and I did. Luke brewed coffee, slid a mug across the table, and sat down with me. Man, I've been telling you for months. Emily's friends are toxic, and she lets it happen. He shook his head. Remember your birthday? They mocked your mom's accent at the table. Or your sister's wedding. They called it cute for a budget event. You deserve better than this. He wasn't wrong. I've been making excuses for too long. By 10 o'clock, my phone started ringing again, this time from unknown numbers. I finally picked one up. One of the unknown calls finally connected, and it was Emily. She was using her work phone this time. Ryan, we need to talk. I sighed. Okay, talk. Not over the phone. Come home. I'm good. Her tone sharpened. You're being ridiculous. So, you got your feelings hurt. My friends were just having fun. You embarrassed me in front of everyone and stuck me with the bill. I paid for my meal, Emily. You told me I could pay and leave. I just took your suggestion. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Who does that? Someone who's tired of being disrespected. There was a pause. Then she softened her voice. Baby, please. I'm sorry. They went too far. Just come home and we'll talk. But can you at least send me money for last night? I had to put the whole thing on my credit card. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No. You invited everyone out to celebrate your promotion, and then you sat there while your friends tore me down for hours. I'm not paying for the privilege of being mocked. Her voice climbed again. This is insane. You can't just... I hung up. The calls kept coming, different numbers, same demand, but I stopped answering. Then something unexpected happened. I got a text from another unknown number. Hey, this is Olivia's boyfriend, Aaron. Just wanted to say I heard what happened, and good for you, man. They've been trashing you for years. Olivia showed me the texts, and honestly, you did the right thing. Heads up, though, they're all at Emily's right now plotting some kind of revenge. Just thought you should know. Revenge? For what? For not being their personal ATM? I decided right then I'd lay low at Luke's place for a few more days until I figured out my next move. The lease was in both our names, but I was the one covering most of the rent. Sooner or later, I'd have to deal with that. What stung the most was that through all of this, Emily hadn't once apologized for her friend's behavior. Not once. Every single message was about money or her being embarrassed. Well, their revenge showed up, and it was both pathetic and infuriating. First, the one bit of good news. I swung by the apartment while Emily was at work to grab more of my things. Taped to the door was a notice, noise complaint from Monday night. Turns out, her little strategy session with the Mean Girls Club got so loud the neighbors called it in. That's now on our rental record. Great. When I stepped inside, the place was trashed. Wine bottles all over the floor, takeout containers piled on the counter. My PlayStation was missing too, though I eventually found it shoved into the back of her closet. But then I saw something worse. My toolbox had been raided. Several of my specialty electrical tools, expensive gear I'd built my career around, were gone. I started making calls, and through a mutual friend, I found out they were listed on Facebook Marketplace. My tools, worth hundreds, posted online for dirt cheap. I screenshotted every listing. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I noticed my project room had been disturbed. The bike I'd been restoring for over a year, it was listed on OfferUp. Emily had put it up herself. Mechanic special, needs work, $1,000 OBO, must go ASAP. That bike, even in its current condition, is worth at least $8,000. Once finished, closer to 10. And it wasn't even hers to touch, let alone sell. I called the police on the non-emergency line, explained everything. The officer on the other end sighed and told me, since you two live together, it's complicated. But selling property that doesn't belong to her still counts as theft. The officer on the phone suggested I start documenting everything and file a formal report. So I spent the afternoon snapping photos of my tools, my bike, and the mess inside the apartment. That's when my phone buzzed. This time it was a text from my landlord. Ryan, need to talk to you about the lease. Emily called saying you abandoned the apartment and wants you off the lease. Also received noise complaint. Please call me. I dialed immediately. Mr. Davis has been my landlord for 2 years, solid guy, no nonsense. He picked up, and his first words were, she says you moved out and won't be paying rent anymore. I explained, I've been gone 3 days because of a domestic situation. I'm not abandoning anything. In fact, I'm literally standing in the apartment right now. Mr. Davis let out a slow breath. She made it sound like you'd been gone for weeks. Look, between you and me, I'd rather keep you. You've never been late on rent, never had issues until now. If you want to take over the lease solo, I'm open to it. And her? I asked. She'd need to agree to be removed, or you'd both have to break the lease. But Ryan, one more noise complaint, and I'll have grounds for eviction. Just keep that in mind. It was good to know he was on my side. After documenting everything, I decided it was time to get my bike out of there before she tried pawning it off too. I wheeled over to Luke's garage, loaded up my remaining tools, and took only the things that had been mine before Emily and I moved in together. Anything we'd purchased jointly, I left behind. That evening, as I was loading the last box into my truck, Emily came home. She froze in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. What are you doing? Moving my things somewhere safe, since you've been selling them without asking. Her jaw clenched. I needed money to cover that dinner you walked out on. So you stole my tools. It's not stealing, Ryan. We live together. What's yours is mine. I shook my head. That's not how anything works, Emily. Before she could respond, Claire's car pulled into the lot. Of course. Emily scoffed, standing firm in her work clothes. You're not seriously ending our relationship over one dinner. I set the box down and faced her. It's not about one dinner. It's about 2 years of your friends disrespecting me while you stood by and laughed. It's about you literally telling me to leave if I didn't like it. And it's about you selling my stuff when I finally did. Right then, Claire got out of her car, smirking. Oh good, the loser's here. Ryan, you owe Emily $500. I kept moving boxes. No, I don't. Yes, you do. You invited everyone out, and when the check came, you bailed. I turned back to her. I paid for my meal and left when I was told to leave. That's not bailing. That's doing exactly what I was instructed. Claire rolled her eyes and looked at Emily. I told you he was too proud. Blue-collar guys always have fragile egos. That actually made me laugh. I set the last box in the truck bed and shook my head. My ego's fine. My boundaries are just finally clear. I closed the tailgate with a satisfying slam. Emily grabbed my arm, her voice breaking. Ryan, please, let's talk about this. I met her eyes. We are talking. And I'm telling you, I'm done. I'll sort out the lease this week. In the meantime, maybe find a roommate. Maybe one of your ambitious, successful friends. Her face twisted. You're really throwing away 2 years? No, I said quietly. You already did that. I'm just refusing to subsidize it anymore. I got in my truck and drove away, both of them staring after me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a weight lift off my chest. That night, Emily tried calling again. Different numbers, blocked each one. Eventually, a voicemail came through. You're right. Okay, my friends were out of line. But you didn't have to be so cruel about it. Please, Ryan, come home. We can work this out. I love you. For a moment, I sat there listening to it on repeat, trying to decide if the words carried any real meaning, or if they were just another tactic to pull me back in. Too little, too late. This is the final update, the conclusion of this entire ridiculous saga. After I hauled the last of my things out, I went straight to the police station and filed a report for my stolen tools. I had screenshots of Emily's Facebook Marketplace listings, timestamps, and even my original receipts. The officer didn't need much convincing. He told me it was straightforward, textbook, really. We'll be following up with her, he said, scribbling notes while shaking his head. Next stop was Mr. Davis, the landlord. Emily had refused to take her name off the lease, acting like she still had some kind of power. What she didn't realize was that I'd been quietly documenting everything, every text, every incident, every late-night party, and selling stolen goods online. That leaves a trail even a half-asleep rookie cop could follow. On top of that, she had racked up 3 official noise complaints in just 2 weeks. Those support sessions with her friends weren't as subtle as she thought. Neighbors were fed up. Add in the violations for unauthorized sales of another tenant's property and harassing Luke about my whereabouts, and Mr. Davis had no reason to cut her slack. He served her with a cure or quit notice, 3 days to fix the violations or face eviction. Suddenly, the woman who had sworn she'd never budge was suddenly very interested in being removed from the lease. That was just the beginning. Remember Aaron, Olivia's boyfriend? He reached out again. Turns out he'd hit his breaking point, too. Olivia had been mocking him behind his back to Emily and the others, calling him her practice boyfriend, until she found someone better. He dumped her and moved out that very week. That's when the dominoes really started falling. Without Aaron paying half her rent, Olivia couldn't cover her apartment anymore. She tried moving in with Emily, but thanks to the cure or quit notice, an unauthorized roommate would have been an automatic lease violation. Door closed. Zoe's house of cards collapsed too. Her boyfriend found the texts she'd sent me, the ones demanding money, and he finally connected the dots. If she's this manipulative with him, he told a mutual friend. What's she like with me? They're on a break now, though I'd bet it won't end with a happy reunion. And Claire, the ringleader, the one always stirring the pot, she got herself fired. Not because of me, but because she couldn't stop running her mouth on social media during work hours. HR had been collecting receipts of their own. When they finally lowered the boom, she was out. Without her job, the whole queen bee lifestyle she liked to flaunt came crashing down. Meanwhile, my life was moving in the opposite direction. I signed the lease on a 1-bedroom closer to work. Rent's cheaper, the neighbors actually say hello, and the place has this little balcony that catches the morning sun just right. I've been pouring time into restoring my bike. New chrome, polished frame, rebuilt carburetor. Should have it roaring by spring. I even picked up some side mechanic jobs that are paying surprisingly well. For the first time in a long time, I feel stable. Solid. Yesterday, out of the blue, I got one last text from Emily. She said she's moving back in with her parents. Apparently, the friend group has turned on each other now that money's tight. Olivia blames Emily for dating down. Zoe blames Claire for being a bad influence. Claire says they're all ungrateful. Like rats scrambling when the ship sinks, they tore each other apart. Emily's message read, I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry. Is there any chance we could try again? I stared at the screen for a minute, then locked my phone and set it down. I didn't bother replying. Some bridges don't just burn, they collapse into the river and sink out of sight. Last weekend, Luke helped me move into my new place. As we lugged the last box up the stairs, he wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, Bro, you didn't just dodge a bullet. You dodged a whole firing squad. He's right. And the irony? A week later, I ran into Aaron at a sports bar. We ended up grabbing a couple beers, trading stories, laughing about how our exes treated us like placeholders. 2 blue-collar guys who were apparently beneath them, now realizing we're better off without the drama. We're even planning to hit up a motorcycle show next weekend. Who knows? Maybe a friendship grows out of all this wreckage. Funny how life works. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or messy. It's quiet. It's refusing to be anyone's punching bag or meal ticket. They thought I'd pay for their games. In the end, they're the ones paying, just not in the way they expected. My mom called yesterday. She said I sound happier than I have in years. She's right. I am. It's amazing how much lighter you feel when you finally put down the weight of people who never respected you in the first place.